Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. Anda bersama saya Nabilah Khaleeda dan ini Niaga AWANI. Seperti biasa jam ini kita akan berikan laporan berita bisnes kewangan dan juga ekonomi. Jadi kita mulakan dengan perkembangan berikut. MIDF Research mengekalkan unjuran ekspor barangan Malaysia akan pulih dan berkembang pada kadar 5.2% tahun ini. Bagaimanapun firma pendidikan itu turut menyemak naik unjuran pertumbuhan import kepada 11.2% berdasarkan pemulihan lebih pantas. Ia memandangkan import lebih teguh pada 13.8% dari tahun ke tahun pada separuh pertama tahun ini berbanding ekspor pada 3.9%. Menerusi satu nota kajian, firma itu meramalkan pemulihan dalam perdagangan barangan elektrik dan elektronik E&E global dan peningkatan luas dalam permintaan luar bagi menyokong pemulihan ekspor keseluruhan tahun ini. Terdahulu, prestasi positif itu didorong pertumbuhan import 17.8%, mencecah 111.8 bilion ringgit dan ekspor 1.7% bernilai 126 bilion ringgit pada Jun 2024. Prestasi ekspor Malaysia meningkat pada Jun 2024 seiring dengan peningkatan ekspor domestik menyumbang 79.7% kepada jumlah ekspor meningkat 7.1% kepada 100.4 bilion ringgit. Sebaliknya, ekspor semula turun 15.1% berbanding Jun 2023 bernilai 25.6 bilion ringgit menyumbang 20.3% kepada jumlah ekspor. Sementara itu, import bernilai 111.8 bilion ringgit meningkat 17.8%, lebihan dagangan menurun 50.8% kepada 14.3 bilion ringgit, mencatatkan lebihan bulan ke-50 berturut-turut sejak Mei 2020. Sementara itu, firma pendidikan itu berkata, pertumbuhan berterusan dalam aktiviti ekonomi dan pelaburan domestik akan menyokong import untuk terus berkembang dengan kukuh tahun ini. Bagaimanapun, MIDF Research menjangkakan perdagangan akan pulih tetapi mereka kekal berhati-hati terhadap konflik geopolitik yang berterusan serta ketegangan perdagangan selain prospek pertumbuhan yang lemah dalam pasaran utama seperti Amerika Syarikat dan China akan memberi kesan negatif kepada tinjauan perdagangan. Baik, bercakap mengenai perdagangan, kami ada sedikit data dan juga statistik yang dikongsikan oleh Jabatan Perangkat Malaysia DOSM semalam, dan kalau boleh saya bukakan pada waktu ini, di mana ia menunjukkan sedikit prestasi dan di mana Malaysia menyaksikan perdagangan yang menggalakkan pada Jun 2024 di mana ia didorong oleh perkembangan ekonomi global yang memberangsangkan dan jumlah dagangan menunjukkan peningkatan 8.7% daripada 218.8 bilion ringgit pada tahun sebelumnya kepada 237.8 bilion ringgit. Kalau boleh saya tunjukkan di sini, warna biru ini ialah menunjukkan perbandingan ataupun ekspor dan di mana warna hijau ni menunjukkan di mana data untuk import. Dan kalau kita boleh tunjukkan untuk Jun 2024 itu sendiri, ia menunjukkan peningkatan untuk import meningkat sebanyak 17.8% dan mencecah sehingga 111.8 bilion ringgit dan untuk ekspor meningkat 1.7% dan mencecah sehingga bilangan 126 bilion ringgit. Dan kalau kita boleh bandingkan antara Jun tahun ini 2024 dan Jun pada tahun lalu 2023, kita dapat saksikan peningkatan itu. Kalau untuk tahun ini 126 bilangannya, manakala pada tahun lalu ialah 123.9 bilion ringgit. Itu untuk ekspor. Manakala untuk import pada tahun ini ialah 111.8 seperti yang saya sebutkan tadi, tetapi kita dapat lihat perbezaan atau peningkatan itu pada tahun lalu 94.9 bilion ringgit. Dan jumlah dagangan pula secara keseluruhan kita dapat saksikan 8.7% peningkatan untuk Jun 2024 sebanyak 237.8 bilion ringgit, manakala imbangan dagangan turun sedikit sebanyak 50.8% dan bilangannya adalah 14.3 bilion ringgit. Itu berkenaan dengan datanya. Baik, kita akan tunjuk juga import bagi BEC dan juga pengguna akhir, di mana kalau BEC ini akan kita bahagikan dalam 3 sektor ataupun 3 bahagian. Yang pertamanya ialah barangan perantaraan. Kita dapat saksikan bilangannya ialah 60.8 bilion ringgit meningkat sebanyak 37.2%, manakala barangan modal 12 bilion ringgit peningkatan sebanyak 23.5% dan juga barangan penggunaan sebanyak 9.2 bilion ringgit peningkatan sebanyak 13.5%. Baik, kini kita dapat lihat saksikan prestasi import dan juga ekspor bagi sektor untuk ketiga-tiga ini, pembuatan, pelumbungan dan juga pertanian. Kalau secara keseluruhannya anda dapat saksikan kesemua sektor ini untuk ekspor dan juga import menunjukkan peningkatan, dan untuk ekspor kita dapat saksikan untuk pembuatan menunjukkan peningkatan sebanyak 1%, mencecah 109.7 bilion ringgit, dan untuk import meningkat juga 17.5%, mencecah bilangan 92.6 bilion ringgit. Dan untuk pelumbungan kedua-duanya meningkat untuk ekspor 15.1%, mencecah nilai 7.9 bilion ringgit, dan untuk import 17.9% peningkatan sehinggalah 10.9 bilion ringgit. Begitu juga dengan pertanian meningkat 13.2% untuk import mencecah 5.8 bilion ringgit dan ekspor 1.7% nilainya 7.6 bilion ringgit. Dan ini adalah satu pergerakan ataupun trajektori yang positif untuk perdagangan negara kita. Baik, dan ini adalah tiga rakan dagangan utama Malaysia, dan sudah tentu seperti yang ramai tahu ialah China, Singapura dan Amerika Syarikat, dan biru ini menunjukkan untuk ekspor dan berwarna hijau ni adalah indikasi untuk import. Dan kalau kita dapat lihat di sini secara keseluruhannya untuk import ketiga-tiga meningkat untuk ketiga-tiga negara, untuk China, Singapura dan Amerika Syarikat, manakala untuk ekspor hanya di Amerika Syarikat sahaja yang menunjukkan peningkatan, manakala untuk Singapura dan China menunjukkan penurunan sedikit, di mana untuk Singapura ekspornya menurun 3% dan untuk China penurunan 2% untuk ekspor. Dan manakala untuk import kita dapat lihat peningkatan itu yang orang kata sangat merangsangkan, 39.6% untuk Amerika Syarikat, 17% untuk Singapura dan China 29%. Baik. Dan sedikit data untuk dagangan dengan ASEAN secara keseluruhannya sumbangannya ialah sebanyak 27.3% dan untuk ekspor sendiri ialah 38.5 bilion ringgit, peningkatan 2.1%, dan untuk import 26.6 bilion ringgit, peningkatan 10%. Dan ini apa yang kami boleh rangkumkan untuk prestasi ataupun data dan statistik perdagangan untuk bulan Jun 2024. Jadi untuk kita berbincang lanjut berkenaan data ini, kita akan bersama dengan Profesor Madya Dr. Ahmad Razman Abdul Latif, pengarah program MBA Putra Business School PBS. Selamat pagi, Doktor.
Selamat pagi, Nabilah.
Baik, Prof, mungkin pertama sekali boleh kongsikan apakah faktor utama yang menyumbang kepada peningkatan perdagangan keseluruhan sebanyak 8.7% yang saya bentangkan tadi untuk Jun 2024?
Ya, Nabilah, apabila kita lihat apakah faktor utama yang menyumbang kepada peningkatan perdagangan keseluruhan, sebenarnya ianya bukan setakat pada bulan Jun, malahan pada separuh masa tahun pertama untuk 2024 ini telah mula melihat kepada peningkatan ekspor dan import setiap bulan. Malahan apabila kita lihat pada bulan Jun ini, ianya lebih didorong kepada peningkatan domestik yang mengekspor barangan keluar, dan juga peningkatan aktiviti ekonomi di peringkat global. Dan seperti yang kita lihat dalam statistik itu, walaupun ekspor dan import menunjukkan peningkatan, tetapi apa yang berlaku sekarang ini adalah peningkatan dari segi import itu memberi petanda bahawa berlakunya semakin tinggi peningkatan untuk barangan ekspor kita, kerana negara kita apabila merujuk kepada setengah sektor tertentu seperti pembuatan elektrik elektronik, petanda bagaimana kita mendapat permintaan yang tinggi daripada global apabila kita mengimport lebih banyak komponen-komponen bahan mentah untuk pembuatan, pemasangan di peringkat domestik, kemudian diekspor keluar. Oleh itu apabila kita lihat berlakunya peningkatan dari segi import yang ketara, ianya akan menyumbang kepada juga peningkatan ekspor dan sekaligus menyumbang kepada peningkatan perdagangan yang kita lihat lebih daripada 87% itu tinggi daripada purata anggaran untuk tahun ini.
Baik, Prof, kalau kita boleh cakap perdagangan di negara kita ini sedikit sebanyak orang kata disokong oleh perdagangan di luar negara. Jadi bagaimana Prof melihat situasi perdagangan di luar negara dan bagaimana ekonomi global yang semakin kukuh ini memberi kesan kepada prestasi perdagangan di Malaysia?
Ya, sudah tentu memang suasana ekonomi global akan memberi kesan kepada prestasi perdagangan Malaysia, terutamanya daripada rakan dagang utama kita, China, Singapura dan juga Amerika Syarikat. Lebih-lebih lagi daripada China sebenarnya, kerana pada awal tahun ekonomi China agak sedikit perlahan mereka
iaitu kurang permintaan dari peringkat
deflasi dari peringkat pasaran domestik mereka. Tetapi ini telah berubah sejak belakangan ini apabila mula menunjukkan peningkatan permintaan, dan ini turut menyumbang kepada peningkatan prestasi perdagangan negara kita. Selain itu, kalau kita lihat di Amerika Syarikat juga, ekonomi mereka juga masih menunjukkan pertumbuhan, kadar inflasi terkawal. Itu turut juga menyumbang kepada peningkatan permintaan daripada Amerika Syarikat. Dan sudah tentu rakan dagang kita kebanyakan yang utama adalah di kalangan rantau ASEAN dan terutamanya Singapura, Indonesia, Thailand, Filipina, dan kesemua negara ini kalau kita lihat juga sejak
peningkatan aktiviti ekonomi.
Ini menunjukkan prestasi peningkatan aktiviti ekonomi di rantau Asia Tenggara ini disebabkan tidak berlaku situasi yang tidak stabil. Kalau kita lihat dari segi politik di setiap negara ini, kita tidak ada orang kata suasana yang tidak menentu. Semuanya berjalan dengan orang kata tertib sekali dari segi pentadbiran negara dan juga dari segi aktiviti perdagangan. Dan itu yang saya lihat, aktiviti ekonomi pelaburan terutama di rantau Asia Tenggara ini telah mula orang kata memberi peningkatan yang positif kepada prestasi dagang Malaysia.
Prof, bagaimana pula dengan peningkatan import dari China, Amerika Syarikat dan juga Taiwan yang memberi kesan kepada imbangan perdagangan Malaysia ketika ini? Apa pandangan Prof tentang perkara itu?
Ya, sudah tentu daripada apa yang kita lihat melalui statistik yang dikeluarkan oleh Jabatan Perangkaan, bahawa memang menunjukkan peningkatan yang positif untuk negara ini. Tapi bila kita mengimport lebih banyak daripada negara China, daripada Amerika Syarikat, Taiwan, sudah tentu kita mahu memastikan bahawa berlakunya keseimbangan dagangan, yang mana kita masih lagi mencatatkan imbangan dagangan yang positif selama 50 bulan berturut-turut, namun ianya semakin mengecil, dan ini menunjukkan bahawa kita masih lagi rancak mengimport barangan untuk keperluan pembuatan kita, tetapi ianya belum lagi menunjukkan peningkatan ekspor yang lebih ketara daripada peningkatan import. Walaupun kedua-dua menunjukkan peningkatan positif, tetapi apa yang berlaku sekarang, peningkatan import itu adalah lebih tinggi, dan ini akan menyebabkan imbangan perdagangan kita akan semakin mengecil. Dan apabila kita lihat dari sudut itu, maka sebenarnya walaupun kita memang mahu berterusan meningkatkan ekspor, tetapi peningkatan import ini harus juga diseimbangkan dengan pembangunan ataupun pemerkasaan ekonomi domestik itu sendiri, supaya kita dapat mengurangkan kebergantungan kepada negara-negara luar seperti daripada China dan Amerika Syarikat ini, tetapi mampu menghasilkan komponen sendiri untuk memenuhi keperluan ekspor kita. Di situ saya lihat walaupun imbangan perdagangan kita masih positif, tetapi ianya semakin menguncup, dan kita harus berterusan memfokuskan kepada pemerkasaan ekonomi domestik untuk memenuhi keperluan ekspor kita.
Prof, kalau kita lihat berdasarkan laporan MIDF Research, mengekalkan unjuran ekspor berkembang 5.2% untuk tahun ini. Tapi kalau kita lihat juga import itu lebih teguh pada 13.8% dari tahun ke tahun pada separuh pertama tahun ini berbanding ekspor 3.9%. Jadi bagaimana untuk kita mengimbangi kedua-dua ini, dan mungkin apa menjadi faktor pendorong kepada pengukuhan ekspor untuk tahun ini, Prof?
Ya, apabila kita melihat apakah yang akan mendorong kepada pengukuhan ekspor, sudah tentunya daripada suasana ekonomi global. Dan apabila kita melihat walaupun masih lagi kita berdepan dengan situasi yang tidak menentu, krisis Ukraine, Rusia, krisis di Timur Tengah, dan juga sebenarnya perang tarif antara Amerika Syarikat dan China masih lagi berlangsung. Tetapi ianya adalah sesuatu yang boleh dikatakan agak reda sedikit, agak stabil sedikit, dan menyebabkan berlakunya peningkatan aktiviti perdagangan dan juga permintaan di peringkat global. Dan itu yang sebenarnya menyumbang kepada unjuran pertumbuhan ekonomi dan juga ekspor yang positif untuk Malaysia bagi tahun ini. Dan masih lagi mengekalkan segala unjuran KDNK yang positif juga untuk tahun ini. Dan apabila kita lihat apa yang berlaku di luar sana itu sebenarnya memang akan memberi impak kepada pertumbuhan ekonomi di peringkat domestik. Namun pelaksanaan polisi dasar inisiatif di peringkat domestik ini oleh kerajaan adalah juga amat penting. Kita harusnya memastikan bahawa momentum positif ini berterusan apabila kita lihat penarafan rating penilaian prestasi ekonomi Malaysia semuanya kembali menjadi lebih positif. Itu adalah satu petanda kepada keyakinan pelabur untuk berterusan melabur di negara kita. Oleh itu saya melihat walaupun memang kita memang terkesan dengan apa yang berlaku di peringkat global, tetapi ada banyak ruang dan kemungkinan yang kita boleh gunakan di peringkat domestik ini untuk memastikan bahawa kita kekal mampan berdaya saing dan juga mampu mencipta peluang ataupun ruang dalam ekonomi-ekonomi baharu yang membolehkan kita menjadi peneraju dalam sektor tertentu dan tidak semata-mata hanya menjadi negara pengguna sahaja.
Dan kalau kita tengok melalui dasar ekonomi terbuka, jelas pertumbuhan ekonomi China dan unjuran permintaan dalaman Amerika Syarikat yang meningkat dan semua memberi pengaruh kepada Malaysia. Jadi apa mungkin downside risk yang perlu kita teliti? Mungkin seperti pengekalan kadar faedah Amerika Syarikat. Apa pendapat Prof?
Kalau ikut analisis terkini, ada kemungkinan akan berlaku penurunan kadar faedah di Amerika Syarikat. Ini yang terkini lah sebab data daripada Amerika Syarikat menunjukkan CPI ataupun kadar inflasi yang semakin menurun, sedikit menurun, yang semakin terkawal dan juga sentimen perbelanjaan dan juga data buruh semuanya menunjuk ke arah ura-ura bahawa kadar faedah di Amerika Syarikat akan diturunkan. Dan ini akan memberi berita yang baik kepada kita lah. Ia akan membolehkan ringgit kita kembali lebih kompetitif dan dia juga boleh memberi ruang kepada Bank Negara Malaysia untuk menilai kembali polisi monetary mereka, terutamanya berkaitan dengan kadar OPR. Oleh itu apabila ini dijangka berlaku pada pertengahan tahun kedua di Amerika Syarikat berkaitan dengan sama ada kadar faedah akan dikekalkan ataupun diturunkan, saya melihat ianya lebih akan menjurus kepada impak yang lebih positif kepada prestasi ringgit kita dan juga prestasi dagangan dan dari segi menarik pelaburan masuk ke negara kita. Oleh itu apabila kita dalam dasar ekonomi yang terbuka ini sudah tentu memang kita memang akan mudah terpengaruh dengan apa yang berlaku di negara dagang utama kita. Namun dengan pertumbuhan ekonomi China yang semakin positif, dengan situasi yang mana mungkin kita akan melihat kadar faedah di Amerika Syarikat akan diturunkan, ianya akan lebih menyumbang kepada prospek yang lebih positif lah untuk separuh tahun kedua tahun ini.
Baik, terima kasih diucapkan kepada Profesor Madya Dr. Ahmad Razman Abdul Latif, pengarah program MBA Putra Business School atas perkongsian itu tadi. Sudah semestinya kita perlukan kerjasama semua pihak untuk meningkatkan lagi perdagangan negara kita. Jadi kita akan teruskan dengan perkembangan ringkas dagang. Syarikat Penyelenggaraan Pembaik Pulih Pesawat Malaysia, Aero Sedia Berhad, meraih projek bernilai $1.5 juta Amerika, kira-kira 7 juta ringgit, melalui kerjasamanya dengan Bar Aviation Limited bagi penyelenggara pesawat L100 di Uganda. Aero berkata projek itu akan dilaksanakan oleh pasukan khas terdiri daripada 11 profesional termasuk 2 jurutera. Anak syarikat milik penuh Sapura Resources Berhad, Sapura Aero Sedia Berhad, memeterai memorandum persefahaman bersama MRO Sedia Berhad bagi menyediakan pesawat dan perkhidmatan berkaitan penerbangan. Kumpulan itu berkata perkhidmatannya termasuk pengurusan pesawat, penyelenggaraan, pembaikan dan baik pulih, pengendalian darat dan tempat letak pesawat. Pasar raya TF Value Mart mampu menjimatkan RM132.6 juta dalam tempoh 25 tahun dengan melaksanakan penyelesaian tenaga boleh diperbaharui di seluruh cawangannya di seluruh negara. Syarikat pasar raya besar itu yang mempunyai 47 cawangan sedang melaksanakan inisiatif kemampanan itu dengan Plus X Energy dan pemasangan panel solar atas bumbung itu akan dipasang di 23 cawangan. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan Astro AWANI.com serta daganus.com.
Bila kerja sendiri, semua kena buat sendiri. Tapi, bersama rakan niaga, semuanya dapat ditempuhi bersama.
Lima lelaki penghantar makanan didakwa di Mahkamah Magistrate Bangi atas tuduhan membunuh seorang pemandu kereta lelaki dalam satu kejadian.
4 sungai di sekitar kawasan perindustrian Pasir Gudang di Johor termasuk Sungai Kim Kim didapati tercemar dan berada pada tahap yang membimbangkan. Kerajaan sudah mulakan inisiatif untuk menggantikan kenderaan operasinya kepada kenderaan elektrik EV dalam skala kecil terlebih dahulu.
Bertemu kembali. Ketua Eksekutif Pembangunan Sumber Manusia Berhad HRD Corp Datuk Syahul Hamid Daud menawarkan diri mengambil cuti. Dalam satu kenyataan pada Khamis malam, beliau berkata keputusan itu bagi memberi ruang kepada siasatan yang sedang dijalankan oleh Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia SPRM. Tambahnya lagi, semasa ketiadaannya, organisasi itu akan beroperasi seperti biasa dan memastikan tiada sebarang gangguan kepada perkhidmatan.
Dalam kenyataan itu, Syahul Hamid berikrar untuk terus berpegang teguh dengan komitmen terhadap HRD Corp dan menzahirkan ucapan terima kasih atas sokongan yang diterima HRD Corp selama ini. Sebelum ini, Jawatankuasa Kira-kira Wang Negara PAC mendedahkan RM3.77 bilion hasil kutupan levy daripada majikan telah digunakan oleh program latihan HRD Corp untuk melabur dalam pelbagai kegiatan pelaburan. PAC juga meminta Kementerian Sumber Manusia ke SUMA untuk membentangkan dapatan audit bebas terhadap HRD Corp kepada pihaknya September depan. Ketua Audit Negara Datuk Wan Suraya Wan Muhammad Razi dalam laporan Ketua Audit Negara Bilangan 2 2024 sebelum ini dilaporkan berkata, KESUMA disyorkan untuk merujuk pengurusan HRD Corp kepada agensi penguatkuasaan berkaitan susulan kegagalan syarikat kerajaan itu dalam audit yang dilakukan. Tambahnya lagi, terdapat tindakan dan keputusan yang diambil oleh pengurusan HRD Corp tidak mematuhi prosedur serta tidak menjaga kepentingan dalam mencapai fungsi penubuhan syarikat. Justru itu, KESUMA perlu mengambil tindakan sewajarnya terhadap pengurusan HRD Corp bagi ketidakteraturan yang dikenal pasti. Sesudah itu, Menteri Sumber Manusia Steven Sim mengarahkan Ketua Setiausaha KESUMA Datuk Sri Khairul Zami Daud dan Syahul Hamid supaya membuat laporan kepada SPRM.
Malaysian Rating Corporation Berhad MARC menganggarkan pengurangan 10% subsidi bahan api RON 95 boleh mengurangkan defisit fiskal sebanyak kira-kira 0.2% daripada keluaran dalam negara kasar KDNK. Firma itu menjelaskan ketika ini petunjuk yang memberangsangkan dalam pasaran buruh, pertumbuhan KDNK dan perbelanjaan pengguna sewajarnya memudahkan penyasaran semula subsidi ke arah impak kebajikan yang bermanfaat.
Dalam kenyataan pada Khamis, firma itu berpendapat merasionalisasikan subsidi kekal sebagai faktor utama dalam mengurangkan perbelanjaan kerajaan. Ia kerana jelasnya subsidi telah meningkat sebagai bahagian perbelanjaan mengurus Malaysia daripada 4% pada 2003 kepada 25% pada 2023. MARC memaklumkan pada 2022, Malaysia membelanjakan RM70.3 bilion untuk subsidi dengan subsidi bahan api membentuk 74%. Firma itu juga berpendapat kajian perlu terus dibuat terhadap pelbagai subsidi daripada kerajaan supaya wang diperuntukkan diberikan kepada golongan yang sepatutnya. MARC menjelaskan Akta Kewangan Awam dan Akta Tanggungjawab Fiskal Malaysia 2023 telah menghadkan defisit fiskal pada 3.0% daripada KDNK dan pada masa yang sama membenarkan lincongan sementara bagi keperluan semasa. Kerajaan menyasar untuk mencapai penanda aras itu pada 2026 dan jika berjaya, ia akan menstabilkan paras hutang Malaysia yang tinggi dan menjajarkan defisit dengan median global.
Baik, mekanisme penyasaran subsidi RON 95 akan menggunakan sepenuhnya data pangkalan data utama padu dan penentuan kumpulan sasar ditentukan berdasarkan pendapatan boleh guna bersih isi rumah menurut Kementerian Ekonomi. Menurut kementerian itu, sistem padu adalah repositori data individu serta isi rumah warga negara dan pemastautin tetap yang berada di Malaysia.
Setakat 31 Mac 2024, seramai 10.55 juta individu telah mengemaskini maklumat dalam sistem padu. Ketika ini katanya sistem berkenaan berada dalam fasa 2, penganalisisan data yang melibatkan proses penentuan isi rumah, perbelanjaan asas kehidupan wajar dan pendapatan boleh guna bersih. Kementerian Ekonomi berkata demikian menerusi jawapan bertulis bagi menjawab pertanyaan Ahli Parlimen MUA, Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman yang ingin tahu mengenai jumlah pendaftaran penuh padu dan mengapa data padu tidak digunakan bagi permohonan subsidi bersasar diesel. Selain itu, kementerian berkata langkah penyasaran semula subsidi minyak dimulakan dengan program bantuan subsidi madani atau budi madani. Penyasaran subsidi diesel melalui budi madani telah menggunakan semua pangkalan data sedia ada kerajaan yang berkaitan. Dalam hal ini, maklumat daripada budi madani akan dikongsi dan diintegrasi ke dalam padu dari semasa ke semasa bagi menambah baik data tersedia.
Baik, seterusnya kita akan menganalisis pasaran bersama dengan Syed Muhammad Kifni Syed Kamarudin, Ketua Strategi MIDF Research. Baik, Syed Kifni, mungkin pertama sekali bagaimana prestasi FBM KLCI sepanjang minggu ini memandangkan beberapa faktor mungkin mempengaruhi pergerakan pasaran saham. Silakan.
Terima kasih atas jemputan ke AWANI. Sepanjang minggu ini, indeks FBM KLCI yang mewakili syarikat besar naik 0.9% atau sebanyak 15 mata kepada 1,634 pada penutup semalam. Ia merupakan paras penutup harian tertinggi semenjak bulan Mac tahun 2021. Perlu dinyatakan bahawa prestasi pada saham tempatan sepanjang minggu ini adalah bersifat broad-based atau menyeluruh dengan kesemua indeks utama yang lain juga mengalami kenaikan. Umpamanya indeks FBM 70 yang mewakili saham syarikat besar sederhana naik sebanyak 1.6% dan indeks FBM small cap yang mewakili saham syarikat besar kecil pula naik sebanyak 0.6% sepanjang minggu ini. Dengan masing-masing berada paras penutup tertinggi dalam rekod. Manakala indeks pasaran saham antarabangsa di Wall Street Amerika Syarikat menunjukkan prestasi yang bercampur-campur sepanjang minggu ini. Indeks Dow Jones yang mewakili syarikat besar dan kukuh or well-established large companies mencatat kenaikan ke paras rekod tertinggi melebihi taraf bintangan 40,000 mata. Namun indeks Nasdaq yang mewakili syarikat pertumbuhan or growth companies, terutama dalam sektor berkaitan teknologi maklumat, pula mengalami kejatuhan hampir 3% sepanjang minggu ini akibat aktiviti pengambilan untung setelah lebih awal mencatat kenaikan ke paras rekod tertinggi pada minggu-minggu yang sebelumnya. Kami menilai bahawa faktor yang menyumbang kepada kenaikan indeks di pasaran saham tempatan dan antarabangsa dalam beberapa minggu kebelakangan ini adalah berkait meningkatnya probability atau kebarangkalian bahawa result Ketuan Amerika akan menurunkan kadar faedah secara bersiri bermula pada suku 3 tahun ini. Ia berikutan pengumuman data ekonomi Amerika Syarikat yang menunjukkan kadar consumer inflation atau inflasi pengguna dan juga pertumbuhan pasaran buruh negara tersebut sudah mula perlahan. Penurunan kadar inflasi dan pasaran buruh itu dilihat memberi ruang kepada pihak Reserve Persekutuan Amerika untuk menurunkan kadar faedah. Prospek penurunan kadar faedah dolar Amerika pula dilihat akan mengurangkan kos pinjaman di dalam mata wang tersebut. Oleh itu, ia adalah antara sebab kenaikan harga pasaran saham di Wall Street semenjak beberapa belakangan ini. Dan prospek penurunan kadar faedah dolar Amerika juga dilihat akan mendorong sebahagian pelabur untuk menjual dolar Amerika dan membeli mata wang yang lain termasuk ringgit. sepanjang bulan Julai ini umpamanya nilai ringgit telah mengukuh sekitar 1% banding dolar Amerika. Kini pada tahap 4.67 dan jangkaan trend pengukuhan nilai ringgit akan pula mendorong kemasukan dana asing ke pasaran kewangan tempatan. Sepanjang bulan ini saja dalam tempoh kurang 3 minggu, pelabur asing telah mencatatkan nilai belian bersih sebanyak 1.5 bilion ringgit di dalam pasaran saham tempatan. Itu adalah antara sebab penting kenapa harga pasaran saham tempatan sepanjang bulan ini telah mengalami kenaikan. Dan di samping itu, pengumuman data ekonomi Malaysia yang baik juga membantu sentimen pelabur di pasaran saham. Umpamanya angka pertumbuhan retail trade atau dagangan runcit bagi bulan Mei tahun ini melonjak hampir 9% tahun ke tahun. Ini merupakan indikasi bahawa perbelanjaan pengguna di negara ini masih resilient atau berdaya tahan.
Kifni, mungkin boleh kongsikan juga kaunter atau sektor mana yang mendahului dan mana yang mengalami kejatuhan, dan berdasarkan rangkuman prestasi FBM KLCI yang dibentangkan tadi, mungkin apakah perbandingan dengan bulan sebelumnya dan bagaimana perbezaan ini adalah ketara atau tidak?
Okey, sepanjang minggu ini 9 daripada 13 sektor didagang dalam tahap yang lebih baik, lebih tinggi. Indeks sektor pembinaan mencatat kenaikan tertinggi sebanyak 6%. Minat para pelabur dalam saham-saham pembinaan ini dilihat berkait pelaksanaan projek infrastruktur seperti Rapid Transit JB Singapura dan juga cadangan projek infrastruktur seperti LRT Pulau Pinang. Di samping itu, kepesatan cadangan pembinaan pusat data atau data center seperti di Selangor, Johor dan Pulau Pinang, juga di Sarawak dilihat akan merancakkan industri pembinaan di negara ini. Manakala indeks sektor produk industri pula mengalami kejatuhan terbesar sekitar 2% sepanjang minggu ini. Kejatuhan indeks ini agak tertumpu kepada kejatuhan hampir 8% harga saham precious metal aluminium yang merupakan syarikat kedua terbesar dalam indeks tersebut. Dan kejatuhan harga saham precious metal aluminium itu pula mungkin berkait dengan kejatuhan harga aluminium di pasaran antarabangsa semenjak bulan Jun lepas.
Baik, baru-baru ini Rakuten Trade ada menaikkan sasaran akhir tahunnya untuk penanda aras FBM KLCI kepada 1,730 mata daripada 1,660 sebelumnya, susulan kemasukan pelaburan langsung asing FDI dalam pusat data dan juga pendapatan korporat yang bertambah baik dan juga kecairan tunai domestik. Jadi persoalannya, adakah kita dapat mencapai sasaran ini? Apa pendapat Kifni?
MIDF Research kami menjangka FBM KLCI akan naik ke paras 1,750 mata pada tahun ini. Actually, in fact, pada jangkaan awal kami pada bulan Disember lepas adalah 1,665 untuk tahun ini. Dan sepanjang tahun ini kita lihat prestasi pasaran saham telah melebihi jangkaan kami, dan oleh itu kami telah menaikkan jangkaan bagi tahun ini daripada 1,665 kepada 1,750. Dan prospek kenaikan itu adalah agak cerah, agak bright, seperti yang dinyatakan semasa saya hadir dalam program sama di AWANI pada bulan lepas. Pergerakan pasaran saham berselang-seli dengan kenaikan dan konsolidasi. Pada umpamanya pada bulan April dan Mei, kita dapat lihat kenaikan hampir 100 points, 100 mata bagi KLCI, dan pada bulan Jun kita mengalami konsolidasi dan kita jangkakan pada suku ketiga tahun ini kita akan mengalami lonjakan lagi, another rally in the KLCI, dan kita nampak perkara itu sekarang telah berlaku sejak 3 minggu yang lepas. KLCI telah kembali naik beyond 1600 points level, dan sekarang trading at around 1630 level yang merupakan paras tinggi untuk tahun ini. Dan pada masa mendatang, kami jangka faktor positif dalaman seperti kemapanan ekonomi tempatan dan prospek pertumbuhan ekonomi korporat, juga faktor luaran seperti penurunan kadar faedah oleh Rizab Persatuan Amerika dan pengukuhan mata wang ringgit berbanding dolar Amerika dan kemasukan dana asing ke dalam pasaran tempatan akan dilihat mendorong kepada kelanjutan kenaikan indeks ke paras target level of 1,750.
Baik, terima kasih diucapkan kepada Syed Muhammad Kifni Syed Kamarudin, Ketua Strategi MIDF Research atas perkongsian itu tadi, dan segala perkongsian dan perbincangan itu tadi akan kami bawakan dalam semua platform digital Astro AWANI, dan kami akan berhenti rehat seketika, kembali selepas ini.
Bila kerja sendiri, semua kena buat sendiri. Tapi, bersama rakan Niaga, semuanya dapat ditempuhi bersama.
Apa signifikan dengan pengumuman ataupun berita yang keluar dari media China ini berkaitan dengan hasrat Malaysia untuk menyertai gabungan BRICS?
Kita mahu dapat lebih banyak umpamanya pelaburan daripada negara China.
Kalau melihat kepada Akta Kanak-Kanak 2001, adakah kita terlalu lambat untuk melihat proses untuk meminda akta sedia ada?
Kita perlu ada penyelarasan. Kita tak mahu bekerja secara silo.
Lebih banyak aksi sukan mendebarkan secara langsung di Astro Sports Pack. Liga bola sepak terbesar. Pukulan kencang di gelanggang. Kehangatan liga perlumbaan. Ikon di green. Dan juara yang bakal tercipta. Stream kesemuanya di sini dengan apa jua cara. Hanya di Astro.
Masih belum terlewat untuk anda menyinar. Kilauan emas kembali. Warga negara Malaysia berumur 45 tahun ke atas yang berbakat. Sila hadirkan diri ke sesi uji bakat pada tarikh dan lokasi tertera. Bersedialah dengan salah satu daripada lagu wajib berikut. Anda juga boleh hantarkan video nyanyian anda kepada kami melalui WhatsApp. Kami menantikan penyertaan anda. Masa untuk anda menyinar.
Lady, sepatah mudah dipatah, secegak tak mudah dipatah. Ingat tu.
Jangan terkejut, saya tiba-tiba menjelma ke mana-mana daerah.
Asah kapak tajam beliung, tebang mari kayu berduri. Tuanku umpama kemincak payung, batik di bawah berteduh diri. Saksikan buletin Awani khas, sempena istirahat pertabalan ke bawah duli yang maha mulia, Sri Paduka Baginda yang di-Pertuan Agong ke-17 Sultan Ibrahim. Sabtu 20 Julai 2024 bermula jam 8 pagi.
Baik, Kementerian Kewangan memaklumkan cukai jualan dan perkhidmatan SST yang dilaksanakan ketika ini mampu memberikan kesan fiskal yang lebih cepat berbanding pelaksanaan cukai barang dan perkhidmatan GST. Sehubungan itu, Timbalan Menterinya Lim Hu Ying berkata kerajaan masih belum berhasrat untuk melaksanakan semula GST. Katanya GST akan dipertimbangkan apabila terdapat persekitaran ekonomi yang bersesuaian, terutama mengambil kira aspek kesan inflasi daripada rasionalisasi subsidi.
akan terus mengutamakan untuk menambah baik sistem cukai sedia ada dan memperkenalkan percukaian yang tidak memberi kesan kepada golongan rentan sebelum menilai keperluan untuk memperkenalkan cukai kepenggunaan baharu seperti cukai barang dan perkhidmatan iaitu GST. Justru sebarang perubahan dasar kepada sistem percukaian berasaskan kepenggunaan seperti melaksanakan semula GST akan diteliti untuk memastikan ianya bersifat progresif, mudah ditadbir, tidak memberi impak negatif kepada kos sara hidup dan pertumbuhan ekonomi serta pada masa yang sama dapat menjana hasil yang memapan kepada kerajaan.
Beliau menjawab pertanyaan Kamal Asyari yang mahu tahu adakah kerajaan berhasrat untuk memperkenalkan semula GST, iaitu sistem cukai yang disifatkan lebih baik berbanding SST. Kamal turut bertanyakan apakah usaha kerajaan dalam mempertingkatkan hasil selain melalui pungutan cukai dan pelaksanaan subsidi pesasar. Mengulas lanjut, Hui Ying berkata bagi tahun 2023, kutipan cukai menyumbang sekitar RM229 bilion atau 72.8% daripada hasil kerajaan, iaitu sebanyak RM315 bilion. Katanya lagi pemberian subsidi, insentif dan bantuan kerajaan pula adalah sekitar RM80 bilion atau 19.7% daripada keseluruhan perbelanjaan kerajaan sebanyak RM406 bilion.
15 memorandum persefahaman bernilai RM1.55 bilion yang melibatkan hampir 30 buah syarikat bioteknologi telah dimeterai menerusi National Bioeconomy Showcase 2024 atau NBio Showcase 2024. Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Malaysian Bioeconomy Development Corporation, Bioeconomy Corporation, Muhammad Khairul Fizal Abdul Razak berkata, daripada jumlah itu, 4 memorandum persefahaman melibatkan capaian antarabangsa iaitu Jepun, Singapura, Indonesia dan Kazakhstan.
Beliau berkata ini menunjukkan minat yang tinggi daripada pelabur luar negara terhadap potensi dan perkembangan sektor bioteknologi di Malaysia.
Saya rasa insya-Allah kalau kita boleh bagi masa sikit untuk dia ni sampai hujung tahun ini mungkin kita boleh mencecah sehingga 2 bilion pun. Cuma sekarang ni Bioeconomy Corporation bersama dengan Kementerian Sains perlu bekerja erat dengan pihak-pihak syarikat ini untuk memaktubkan perjanjian dan persefahaman antara syarikat ini. Setakat ni saya nampak yang paling besar adalah daripada syarikat Indonesia yang
1.5 bilion tu adalah foreign investment.
Betul. So yang lain tu macam saya cakap tadi ada juga yang melibatkan perniagaan tetapi masih lagi di peringkat awal yang belum dimuktamadkan kepada apakah jumlah jualan yang akan dapat diperolehi nanti. Tetapi mereka telah memberi persefahaman letter of intent yang mereka berminat dengan produk-produk negara, produk tempatan maksud saya, dan ini boleh kita ditranslatekan kepada nilai jualan insya-Allah, dan kita harap kita dapat mengkonkludkan semua itu pada hujung tahun ini insya-Allah sekurang selewat-lewatnya.
Beliau berkata demikian ketika ditemui di Pusat Dagangan Dunia WTC semalam sempena NBio Showcase 2024 yang berlangsung selama 2 hari bermula 17 Julai 2024. Katanya NBio Showcase 2024 juga telah menjadi platform untuk pelancaran 5 jenis produk oleh syarikat berstatus BioNexus dan Bio-Based Accelerator BBA dengan sasaran nilai jualan hampir RM400 juta dalam tempoh 3 tahun akan datang. Menurutnya lagi, Bioeconomy Corporation bersama dengan Kementerian Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi MOSTI akan bekerjasama dengan lebih erat untuk memaktubkan lebih banyak perjanjian dan persefahaman antara syarikat-syarikat bioteknologi di Malaysia, khususnya dengan syarikat berstatus BioNexus dan BBA.
Alright, we're now in the segment of AWANI Green Action where the large-scale solar LSS program tender will be closed at the end of this month and will be announced in January next year, which will pave the way for the construction of new solar farms. Tender winners need 6 months to finalize financing with the bank. After that, the installation work will start around July 2025, and currently the solar industry players need around 60,000 workers to ensure the project is completed by December next year. So what are the major challenges is faced by the solar industry in this context, and what are the current challenges or limitations in Malaysia's clean energy infrastructure that need to be addressed to fully harness its potential? So to help us understand this situation, ready with us in the studio right now is Koh Chuan Zhen, the Group Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Plus Energy. All right, firstly, perhaps maybe you can share how achievable it is or how feasible it is for industry in Malaysia to implement energy-saving measures like solar, for example, and considering the initial investment and also potential barriers right now.
All right. I would say Malaysia definitely in the geographical situation, we are in quite a good location that always full of this very rich sunlight. So Malaysia is one of a country, I would say, around the world, and also in the region that really suitable for renewable energy, like especially in solar energy. So however, when we heard about solar energy, the first perception is always it's very costly, like the initial investment cost barrier is what you mentioned. However, I would say in the past 12 years, with a different Malaysia initiative from public and also government, actually it has really reduced a lot of this barrier. So for example, like we have this regulation called feed-in tariff in the early time, and right now we call NEM, net energy metering. So it will be able to make us able to save energy and also to offset on our bill. Yeah, so it's a one-to-one offset for the rakyat, and also we are able to save the SAP price for this industrial factory. That's why you were able to see there's a lot of these factory and also residential houses go for solar energy. At the same time, actually, there's also lower down this initial barrier through the different government incentive. For example, like Green Investment Tax Allowance, GITA or GITE. So all this actually able to help the company who invest in renewable energy like solar, able to save their capex through the investment from their profit. So actually this able to shorten the payback period for solar system. So for example, right now, if let's say for a factory, when they invest in solar energy, with this Green Investment Tax Allowance, they will be able to shorten their payback period. Last time, probably about 10 years ago, it's about 7 to 8 years. And right now, it can be 3 years or less than 3 years. So the life cycles of solar is 25 years. So which means from 3rd years onward to 25th years, yeah, about 22 years, you'll be able to enjoy the free energy for that X% of your energy, this energy saving is something pretty good. And the other one is right now there's a couple of those affordable solar plan. For example, like Plus Energy, we also one of them who provide like zero capex for factory industrial use. At the same time, we also provide like rent to own model for homeowner to use. So which means our client, they don't need to fork out a huge upfront cost through every month saving. They are able to like rent to own the solar system, like how we pay for the water machine, rent for a water machine in Malaysia for house. And for factory, actually, we will sell them the energy like about 20% cheaper from TNB tariff rate. So which means they were able to enjoy cleaner energy and also a cheaper energy. And at the same time, they were able to get the renewable energy credit for their company to offset their CO2 emission. Last but not least, I would say there's a lot of banks who provide a very affordable financing solution to make solar really affordable in the market today. So this is all the different initiatives, I would say, in the past 12 years to collectively from government side or from private side that how we try to reduce the solar energy, the very huge initial capex to a much more affordable clean energy today.
But during the introduction earlier, it said that LS5 tender closing soon and new solar farms being introduced. So what challenges does the solar industry they will face in securing a large workforce by December 2025?
Yeah, I would say it's always make us very excited when there's a huge project coming, especially when there's about 60,000 workers needed.
But actually not in just a solar, it's just for all renewable energy.
Yeah,
honestly.
correct.
So how is it possible?
Yeah, so I would say it's always possible because Malaysia, since this SEDA and also in RE Act, which happened by this year 2012, Malaysia already has a lot of these baby steps. Going through the different growing stage in biomass, biogas, and also solar energy, or even though for hydropower plants. So I would say along the year, basically industry, we have enough this experience, let's say the expert, for like example like engineers who train to design and also to install solar system, and also we have enough this skilled labor, who have this knowledge to do installation on the solar system side, and also as well as wireman, competent engineers. We could start from solar and also the different renewable energy. So, and also there's a lot of different institutions like polytechnic, or let's say university, actually in the past 5 years, a lot of that actually they really focus through into this skill and also the knowledge in renewable energy sectors. So with the industrial growth and also the private company like us, actually we need a lot of these knowledgeable students, or let's say the graduate or the trained these workers from Polytechnic for us to bring them to the this actual working environment. However, the real training for them is always at the workplace. On-job training is always the most difficult one. So I would say, with this fundamental in the past, probably if let's say there's a lot of like large-scale solar farm, for example, is coming, but at least let's say if we have like 30 to 40% of a skilled labor there, with the job opportunity created, we will be able to use this pioneer team to train more people to pick it up, because all this skill, right, actually is not rocket science. Yeah. So besides skill, it also comes with a very good project management. So those skill set in terms of managed project, in terms of providing the finance from banking side, in terms of installation, troubleshooting, I think we have this confidence that able to catch up this huge demand. Yeah.
Talking about demand and supply, the demand is constantly increasing.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the supply is, I would say, very worrying, I would say. So how about Plus Energy? Do you have the same, do you face a similar problem as well?
Yeah. So I would say this demand supply definitely is coming huge. That's why we have a lot of this initiative that what we are doing. So first of all, like internal training for our people. Like say we have 4 different officers across the whole Malaysia, from Penang, Ipoh, Johor and KL. How we get a different skill engineers and also technicians able to share their knowledge together is very important. Secondly, the industry conference is also very important. There's a lot of different, I would say, the local institution, they will come out training, come from state government, from Polytechnic, and also from university. Actually, for all this training, actually, it will be able to help to enhance the knowledge from our people. At the same time, a lot of this academy and also university, they need the industrial experts input as well. So at the same time, me, myself, is also an industry advisory panel, which we will I also involved in some of these university, for example, like MMU or Xiamen Malaysia campus, to give them some of a syllabus enhancement and how can they tune the syllabus content more able to bridge and also to link with the industrial demand. So I would say this is all the different collective effort that we all have to do, and definitely it will take years to build all this for the huge surge demand on it.
And besides having this problem, which is the amount of workforce, the supply and demand of workforce, Malaysia faces 2 challenges in its low-carbon energy transition, which is to provide immediate value and building an ecosystem for 70% renewable energy by 2050. So despite this steady growth in renewables, Malaysia needs to improve energy efficiency and also diversify its sustainable energy mix to address these environmental concerns. So how can Malaysia overcome this public and also private sector resistance to achieve that 70% renewable energy target by 2050?
Yeah, to be frank, this 70% of a renewable energy target by 2050 is a huge, amazing goal that is big enough for everyone to feel excited, at the same time also a bit afraid. How can we achieve that? So I would say, however, we really like this Malaysian government, the NETR, which is a National Energy Transitions Roadmap, this program. It's a blueprint that printed out very well for us to know where's the goal. So with this goal there, I would say on private and also on government sectors, even though on the regulation side, everyone are moving towards to this goal. So how can we really achieve that? I would say actually in the past, we were able to already see some of organic, I will say, this growth on the private sector. So for example, we do understand that Malaysia, the highest subsidies from government side on energy side. So when the government, definitely we have a much better planning on the budget. Definitely we are reducing these subsidies on the energy side in the past few years. So at the same time, the good things is when we are taking off some of subsidies, mainly for those industry and also like the TNB bill for home, like more than 200 ringgit and above, which is less impact to the rakyat. But at the same time, there's a solution in, which is there's a solar system. Because solar system price has reduced a lot in the past 10 years. Right now, it's really, really affordable. And the price is very similar as TNB, our energy generation price. It's something that we can, I would say, replace. So that's why this becomes an alternative energy solution in the market. So when this transition in terms of reducing the this government subsidies on the energy bill, at the same time, we also have this solution to make solar more affordable to the public, to the factory, to the business, and also to those rakyat who are paying the bill more than 200 ringgit and above. That's an option for them to move towards. So people always will move to the new solution with pain. So when we are facing high energy bill, we need to save energy, then we will move to solar energy. So right now we will say most people who are moving into the energy transition, how to really accelerate it is always start from a pain. So when business owner, when homeowner want to reduce the bill, solar energy gives them a good benefit. So when they move to that, they enjoy the benefit from that. So that's a step one. Second step, definitely for those affordable solution and also banking solution, make solar rate affordable. Also is their peace of mind. So they don't need to worry so much. They can have a very good financial planning to have positive cash flow. So for company, for personal, actually something good. So last but not least is something very important, which is what is the gain? Because we have been taught about how to make the transition, right? There's always pain and also the gain, which is the carrot part to motivate people. So like government, they also ask for a lot of factory and also a lot of corporate right now today, especially those listed companies, they must be ESG compliant to ESG, those targets. So one of it is start from E is about environment, it's about energy saving, it's about CO2 emissions. So with this target there, for those big corporate or on the listed core, they need to be a role model to set a standard. That's why we, in the past 2 years, we see there's a lot of big corporate really go all out for renewable energy, especially like solar installation, to lower down at their this energy bill. At the same time, they would like to have this renewable energy credit to make their company really low in carbon emission. Last but not least, something coming potentially, which we are not sure when, is carbon tax. When carbon tax happen, right, it will make all the company able to know and aware CO2 is a cost in our P&L, because none of us really treat CO2 as a cost in the past. So when there's a consequences there that we know, we need to pay for the CO2 if let's say our CO2 emission is still quite high. So like Singapore already implement this. So it will make people have more awareness to really embrace on clean energy. So I would say this is all the pain and also the gain side from how for government, how they create and also motivate more people to go green.
All right, Mr. Goh, we have a lot more questions to ask, but sadly we only have about 2 minutes left.
Sure.
But perhaps before we end this discussion, we have an ETR just now that you mentioned earlier, National Energy Transition Roadmap. But how, what are the specific metrics that should be used to measure the progress of this framework, and what are other policy measures that are essential to foster the growth of the net energy transition in Malaysia?
Energy transition in Malaysia, I would say definitely the measurement has to come from ST and also from TNB side. So for ST Energy Commission through Hanjang Tenaga, definitely they have all this data and record in the past few years, which they know like 100% of energy from traditional energy, 100% of energy from clean energy, and how they break down into like solar, hydro, biomass, biogas. So I would say we are able to see all this data which announced from year to year for us to know where are we right now, how can we really grow from year to year. So those are, I would say, a very solid and also a very much this mature measurement system. So I would say definitely for more potential policy to come, right, beside net energy metering, beside LSS, what we are looking forward is also like third-party access, which is able to liberalize the Malaysia energy market. So we are pretty look forward for this TPA, third-party access announcement.
All right, that was Koh Chuan Jin, the Group CEO, Chief Executive Officer and Co-founder of Plus Energy. Thank you so much for coming to our studio this morning. Fruitful discussion earlier, and we can find the whole discussion on all of our digital platforms. And sekarang kita akan bersama dengan perkembangan ringkas dagang. Valesto Energy Berhad diunjur mencatatkan keputusan lebih baik pada suku tahun akan datang, didorong jangkaan peningkatan kadar sewa harian DCR pelantar penggerudiannya. BIMB Securities berkata, kumpulan itu mencatatkan pendapatan teras sebanyak 46.8 juta ringgit pada suku pertama hasil peningkatan DCR sebanyak 8% dari suku tahun ke suku tahun kepada RM499,251 sehari. Syarikat agro makanan digital pertama Johor Corporation J Corp iaitu Farmbyte Sdn Bhd memanfaatkan rumusan awan termaju, pembelajaran mesin ML dan kecerdasan buatan AI daripada Amazon Web Services AWS bagi merevolusikan sektor agro makanan di Malaysia selain meningkatkan taraf hidup petani. Menerusi penggunaan perkhidmatan awan AWS, Farmbyte menyasarkan untuk menambah lagi infrastruktur digitalnya dan pendekatan dipacu data kepada pertanian dengan menawarkan rumusan serta cerapan pemantauan tanaman yang komprehensif kepada petani termasuk maklumat cuaca serta aplikasi kadar baja dan racun perosak. Pakar Sistem Bangunan Perindustrian Sarawak Consolidated Industries Berhad SCIB bersama anak syarikat milik penuhnya SCIB Industrialised Building System Sdn Berhad memperoleh jaminan kemudahan perbankan Islam berjumlah 70 juta ringgit. Kemudahan daripada SME Bank Berhad menonjolkan keyakinan bank terhadap model perniagaan dan trajektori pertumbuhan SIBS. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan astroawani.com serta dagangnews.com.
Kenapa semua rambut dalam iklan bersinar? Sebab pakai penapis foto. Untuk rambut terhidrat bersinar, cuba Dove baharu. Diperkaya dengan kompleks hair keratin. Menghidrat secara mendalam untuk 72 jam, rambut bersinar tanpa penapis foto. Baharu, Dove Hair Keratin Shine.
The search untuk bintang TikTok Live Astro di Mic Malaysia kini bermula.
From thousands who audition, hanya 30 peserta yang telah dipilih.
Mereka akan dibentuk oleh kami.
Kami di juri akan memerhatikan setiap peserta secara live, no second take.
Show us what you've got. Yes, I'm Yuna. 6 will rise, hanya 1 juara.
Mampukah mereka perform dari small screen ke big screen?
TikTok Live, Astro, Give Me the Mic Malaysia. Stars are made live.
University Malaya UM is expected to offer a cardiothoracic specialist training course this October.
There will be no U-turn on the implementation of the Vehicle Entry Permit VEP for all foreign vehicles entering Malaysia from Singapore.
Diesel sales at petrol stations have decreased by 30% within the first week of the fuel subsidy rationalisation on June 10th.
Di era digital, pemasaran bukan hanya tentang penjualan semata-mata. Penceritaan menarik jadi kekuatan dalam membina hubungan perniagaan, tingkat pengetahuan, perkasakan perniagaan anda. Saksikan segmen Jiwa SME dalam program Awani Pagi dan Niaga AWANI setiap Isnin hingga Khamis di saluran 501. Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah Jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tehmina Kaoosji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs, market watch, industries, analysis and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, this week on future affairs, we're looking at shifting consumer trends in 2024. Consumers today, of course, are confronted with multiple forces. This includes economic uncertainty, data privacy concerns and a heightened awareness of ESG issues. Now, PwC's recently published report, Voice of the Consumer Survey 2024 Asia Pacific, has uncovered some interesting insights and trends. Rakesh Mani, Asia Pacific Consumer Markets Leader with PwC Malaysia, joins me now in the studios to discuss some of these key trends. Rakesh, how are you doing today?
Hi, Tehmina. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So lovely to have you in the studios with us, Rakesh. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about the ethos behind why this Consumer Survey 2024 and why now for Asia Pacific?
Sure. So PwC as a firm publishes a consumer report, has done for many, many years. We do it about once a year, and it's a valuable pulse of what consumers are thinking, what they expect to see over the next 6 to 12 months, and what implications it creates for business. And it's an interesting snapshot in how we see the next 6 to 12 months, but it's also interesting longitudinally when we compare what it looks like today versus what it was a few years ago.
Exactly. And of course, when we're talking about what it looked like a few years ago, that is actually a lifetime when it comes to everything which has occurred, especially over the past 3 to 5 years, right? Yeah. So tell me, what is the latest 2024 survey revealing about the consumer market landscape in our region?
Okay. Well, it says a lot of different things.
Sure.
But I would say that the headline message is the impact of inflation that is playing out in our economies and globally. Prices have gone up quite dramatically. Wages have not really kept pace. And it creates implications in how consumers spend their money and in which categories and how they're making choices. That would be the central theme, right? And allied with that is how businesses have been responding. So, I think over the last couple of years, you've seen a lot of businesses face some of the same pressures with rising costs. And they've been very creative in finding ways to take price up and protect margins. But there's a limit beyond which you can't really take that. So I think the pressure now on a lot of companies is to say, how do I build more privileged access with my consumers and keep them coming back to me and not really make it a black and white equation on just price?
Exactly. And at the same time, I think we also need to stay cognizant of the fact that Asia Pacific boasts one of the largest emerging middle classes that we have globally. So with the scene set on our regional consumer trends, let's dig a little bit deeper now, Rakesh. Let's move into how businesses can continue to thrive despite this sort of price sensitivity and at the same time maintaining some consumer loyalty.
Yeah.
Now, PwC, in fact, recommends a 3R approach. I'll let you tell us a little bit more about it.
Okay, sure. So what we've laid out in the report is what we call respond, rethink, reimagine. And it really sort of phases some of the trends that we're seeing and some of the potential responses against a time series. And what respond really says is there are some very near-term challenges that businesses are facing today that consumers are telling us about. And there are some immediate actions that need to be taken. For instance, responding to inflation. So what we're seeing is as prices go up, consumers have to be a lot more thoughtful about how they make purchase decisions. And there's some categories that are going to be beneficiaries of that. People see themselves spending more on groceries, on household items. By the way, also a lot on things that have health and wellness cues.
Right.
So eating better, taking care of yourselves better.
And these are, of course, I'm assuming also knock-on impacts of the global pandemic that, of course, just...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there's generally a lot more consciousness around those kinds of things today.
Sure. Longevity and health and wellness.
And wellness and taking care of yourself. In a lot of other categories, what we're seeing is people are being more judicious in how they spend their money. And the way that plays out is, in some categories, they'll say, well, we'd rather postpone this purchase rather than make it today because our household wallet is already quite strained. In other categories, it's to say, well, we're going to price compare a lot more carefully across different channels, across different brands, across different retailers.
Sure.
And in some others, it's to say, well, we need to make the purchase, but we're going to wait and see where there's a special discount or some kind of value that's available. So this is a very kind of practical response to what you're seeing on the response side. And we think the onus is on businesses to say, well, you've got to build better access to your consumers, tell your story better, communicate your brand promise. And it all boils down to this notion of trust. People will come back to you outside of the confines of purely price if there's something else that you bring to them.
Exactly.
And there's many different ways to go and do that.
And I'm actually hearing a lot of delayed gratification occurring in the consumer cycle right now.
Yeah.
So what are some of the bigger ticket items that the survey actually caught people are still saving up for and willing to spend on?
Well, I think one big one is the role of luxury.
Right.
And more premium purchases. I think there is still a fair bit of interest in accessing those categories, perhaps even at the entry stage. And if you ask the question just evenly, yes, there is some direction towards consumers saying we might see ourselves spending less in those categories over the next 6 to 12 months. But perhaps they are still saving up for it and there's still interest in participating in those categories. It just may take a little bit of a different shape.
Right. And when people speak luxury, though it's not always true, it quite often means quality. And do you think that ties in also with a deeper interest in sustainability and trying to reimagine that as how we see ourselves as consumers today?
Yes, I think, it goes to quite a few things, Tehmina. So I think one of them is quality. But I think I would bucket it more broadly around this notion of trust. And trust has, if you double click it, it has a few different themes that
yes, the drop down menu.
The drop down, right? So it's got quality, it's got consistency, it's got authenticity in how you tell your story, how you treat your consumers, your customers, your suppliers, what kind of brand messaging you're putting out there. So there's a lot of these attributes that come under this notion of trust. And we think that is going to become a very powerful way in how businesses position themselves more consciously so that it doesn't descend into a battle around price and promotion.
Exactly. So I'm definitely hearing that it needs to be a balance between the 3 R's, really. So still on inflation, though, but moving into cost of living. Now, Malaysia's cost of living, though, happily speaking, it's still amongst some of the lowest in Southeast Asia when you compare it to major cities, right? Johor Bahru, for example, it rates 214, Singapore rates second.
Yes.
So what are some of the findings that were a little illuminating around inflation, not just for Malaysia, but Southeast Asia-wise?
Yeah, look, I would say that it's a challenge across the region. And many people call this sort of the cost of living crisis era that we're living through. And you might say cost of living is much lower in Malaysia, but then when you compare it with wages and opportunities, everyone's feeling the pinch. And I think what the survey says is across the region, people are reacting to it in fairly similar ways. And they're conscious about a very similar set of things. What categories they're making purchase in, what categories they're delaying purchase in, and what they really expect from brands that they're purchasing from.
Yes.
And I think we haven't seen the end of it yet. So I think it's going to play out over the next 2 to 3 years as we go through this economic cycle. And when we come out on the back end of it, there might be a lot of preferences that have really taken hold. It's not just a temporary blip. So I think the onus is a little bit on brands and retailers to read some of those trends, understand where consumers are shifting preferences and choice, and what they need to do to better position themselves over the next 2 to 3 years, which is what the survey gets into in quite some detail.
Yes, it does indeed. And if you could perhaps share with us a couple of key takeaways when it comes to which sectors in particular have been able to sort of already harness their data, their analytics, to be a little bit ahead of the crowd?
I would say that everyone is somewhere along the journey.
So there's a curve, really?
I think, yes, there is a journey with companies sort of saying we want to gather the data, make sure it's in an appropriate format, analyze it effectively, deploy it to, use those insights to shape how we're going to adapt our product suite or how we go to market. I'll give you an example, right? So one of the questions that we asked was, to what extent do you trust different industries?
Okay, that's a good one.
And it was quite interesting. Right at the top, you'll find the healthcare industry, right? So maybe not surprising. People trust their doctors, they trust their nurses, they trust medical professionals. Retail and consumer companies came somewhere in the middle, but right at the very tail end, we found social media. And I think there's some paradoxes in there, because if you ask consumers, how are you going about your shopping and your purchases today, and how are you likely to do that in the future? More than 50% say, I've been using social media and I expect to do that going forward as well. But at the same time, 60% are concerned about their data privacy and how social media companies use it. They don't quite trust some of the things that are coming out from there. And you and I may agree or disagree on it, but we can agree that it is a big area where a lot of evolution is required.
Exactly. And that's a really fascinating intersection, particularly given that what other data is showing is that Malaysians spend anywhere upwards of 5 to even 8 hours a day scrolling and online. A lot of that, of course, is on social media.
Yes.
So I think something's got to give pretty soon, right?
Yes. You walk around different parts of Asia and you see people constantly on their phones.
Oh, yes, yes. Not uncommon at all.
Making purchases.
Sure.
Interestingly, what we find is when you look across different parts of the purchase funnel, from how do you discover a product or a brand,
right,
to how do you evaluate it, to where do you get your recommendations from, a lot of those early parts of the purchase journey are still very heavily towards social media. And when you move towards the later parts, I want to go in and see the product, try the product, maybe make the purchase. It's still incredible that the in-store experience is hugely important in our part of the world, and people may tend to forget that. So at least 50% of all purchases still sort of people expect to do that within the store. And not just within the store, what they say is in the store, we expect the quality of the exchange with the sales associate to be a big factor in determining what purchase we make and whether we make one at all.
Right. And I'll tell you another fascinating trend, and this is just, I'm drawing from social circles and what female shoppers in particular talk about, is that quite often it's about purchasing from brands that you're familiar with, looking for the whatever it is online, but going in-store to try on to minimize returning articles, etc.
Minimize returning articles, or, frankly, to also just be sure that what you're going to order and receive online is what you actually intended to buy.
Quality, etc.
Quality, trust. I think those are big factors. And I think then there's also, by the way, the role of influencers, which has seen an explosion in the last 3 to 5 years.
It has actually become a profession.
And it has, a viable one. And I think what we see with a lot of the brands that we work with is to say, we need to rethink how we use our marketing budgets and where we deploy it. And what we've seen is this incredible shift from very traditional media advertising to more digital channels. Social media, online, the use of influencers, large and small. And it creates a big shift in how measurable some of the insights are, how you gather impressions, and what you're able to understand about some of the consumers making those choices. So you would argue that the ROI on that marketing spend will be a lot more sharp than it used to be.
Yes, come the next 18 to 24 months. However, moving on from there into something you briefly mentioned, touched upon, let's look at closing the knowledge gap when it comes to, of course, privacy and the use of customer and consumer data. This has, of course, been a huge issue in Malaysia in particular, where we've had, unfortunately, quite a few number of significant data breaches. Is this really influencing how consumers that have been surveyed interact with Gen AI and big tech and data?
Yeah. So I'll separate it into two parts, right?
Yes,
so firstly, on the data side, I think almost every senior executive we talk to today has this at the top of their agenda. So data privacy, cybersecurity, making sure that you protect the data that you have. And I think the mantra there is use it, don't abuse it. So they are interested in harnessing and using a lot of that data to be able to better serve their consumers. Tailoring the right product in the right channel, in the right region, requires analysis of data to say, I want to be able to serve my consumers better, and you have that data, you should be able to use it. But at the same time, being careful about how you store it, what you do with it, who has access to it. These are all topics that are becoming a lot more sensitive, not just for brands, but also for consumers. Because the downside impact of having an unfortunate incident like that can be quite severe in how the brand is perceived or how a company is perceived, and you will see that impact play out with how consumers make their choices.
Sure.
Now, coming to the topic of AI, I think fair to say it's early days still. So I think we see a lot of companies trying out different things with AI and are very excited by the prospect of it. Now, I think the very first step in being able to deploy and use AI effectively within your business is making sure that you have your data in a clean and organized way, maybe transitioned into the cloud, and then you can run all kinds of things on it and use it. But that first step, I think, is we see a lot of companies still going through that with a great deal of urgency, but still going through it. So what I think the survey shows is, in order to get consumers to trust AI and how that's being deployed, I think it's a bit of a journey. So you see consumers willing to rely on AI for a lot more, let's call them lower risk activities.
Right. Let's put it in one bucket.
Let's put that in one bucket. And then there they say, yeah, sure, if I need to price compare across different channels, if I need to consolidate reviews for a product across different marketplaces, I'm okay, I can trust AI to do all of that. Higher value things, getting a legal opinion or a medical opinion, I think those are a lot more sensitive. And I think it's a reflection of where companies and the industry is on their AI journey. We see that coming, but it'll take a little bit of time. And I think a lot of that trust will come with companies going through the hard work of building trust and value over a period of time through data and some of the protections around it as well.
Exactly, and particularly when it comes to the Malaysian landscape, the thing which I'm thinking of, it's really urgent for companies that are in these more sensitive, higher risk sectors, the medical, the legal, the healthcare, to perhaps upscale very quickly to ensure that the consumer markets, which are a little bit more rural, a little bit more out of reach, geographically speaking, they are serviced. Because I think in the urban centers in Malaysia, any big APAC capital, you always have the option of going in person or maybe doing it online.
No, and I think that whole playbook is yet to be written on sustainability, and I think we're going to it's going to be a very, very interesting space over the next few years.
So any thoughts though, Rakesh, moving into the fact that when you look at AI, Gen AI technology, and also personal data protection to increase consumer confidence? Malaysia-wise at least though, the fact remains, as was brought up just very recently by Digital Minister Gobind Singh Deo, that government data such as under PADU, for example, the Central Database Hub, it actually does not offer privilege protection for Malaysians' information, right? So what are some broader thoughts of this, looking at APAC and some other good things which are happening in the region that we could perhaps take a page from?
So I think on the corporate side, what we're seeing is businesses trying to strike this balance between using the data effectively, not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of consumers, and being very careful in protecting how they use that data. And I would say, I think what the survey tells us is that consumers are also a little bit schizophrenic about it, right? They want, in some cases, they want their data to be used because they expect that brands will use that data to serve them more effectively.
That's
right.
So
to give you an example, today a consumer would say, I came in and bought something in your store, and then I tried it on and I decided it wasn't for me, but I gave you my email address, and now I'm making that same purchase online, logging into your portal. Why don't you know it's me?
Fair enough.
Why can't you track me across different channels? So they want that ease and that convenience of the brand knowing them and tailoring what they have to them, but at the same time, they want to make sure that their data is not abused, right? So I think that comes again with the way we see it evolving is that there's some brands that will, and retailers that will be at the forefront of that, striking that balance effectively with the right safeguards at the back end, the right data organization and systems and processes in the back end. And there's some others that will take a little bit longer to get there.
Or perhaps just use the ones at the vanguard as an example of what to do.
Maybe, yes, right? And I think consumers will also mature in their expectations of how their data might be used and protected, and they might sort of gravitate more towards certain brands that they see them doing a good job with that.
Exactly, replicating as well. Now, let's move on into, as we're closing out the discussion, but we cannot overlook the fact that 88% of your consumers who were surveyed, they reported the disruptive effects of climate change. So speaking about climate change, Rakesh, now how is this going to impact business operations on the other hand? What are we already seeing, and what future-looking trends are you already noticing?
And this comes to the reimagine part, right?
Sure.
So we said,
there's
respond, which is immediate around inflation, rethink, which is some of the midterm things around how you use your marketing and social media. And with sustainability and AI, we think it's sort of in the reimagine bucket. And you're right, more than 80% said that they're worried about the impact of climate change. A significant percentage say they're making different choices in how they purchase things. And I think a lot of brands and retailers, if I'm being honest, look at that with a degree of skepticism. And they say, well, yes, that's what consumers say. But when they actually go to make the purchase, there's all these other factors that influence their decisions. It could be inflation, it could be macroeconomic volatility, all the other things. But the trend is quite clear. People are making those choices. And I think for companies today who have looked at this topic as one to protect themselves from, in a sense, right? So they have their reporting in place, they have their disclosures in place, they have all of those kinds of things in place, are now saying, how do I look at sustainability as a vector for differentiation, to set myself apart? Are there some products that I should discontinue? Are there other lines that I should get into? And when you ask consumers, what makes it a sustainable product for you?
Exactly.
There's a whole host of things. Some may be a little bit more important than others, but eco-friendly packaging, the communication on the label, the stories that come out about the brand. There's a host of things. And I think we're going to see companies gravitate more towards that and try and extract a bit of a sustainability premium on the pricing side for things that really follow those cues and are able to capture the heart and minds of consumers.
Sure, and I see that pricing premium, as you really aptly describe it, in process, especially when you're out in any kind of a consumer market these days.
Yeah.
So moving into some final thoughts, Rakesh, let's look at what are some wider insights around these consumer trends and reactions from leaders, from the leadership side of things, as well as employees within these specific sectors where they're actually having to keep up with the pace of change almost on a quarterly basis.
Yes. It's quite dramatic, isn't it, right?
Yes,
it is. So we see that with a lot of our clients and within our own business as well. But so I would say on takeaways on the leadership side, I think no exaggeration to say that we're going through very interesting times. And I think as a leader, the challenge right now is to say, well, I need to fight on multiple fronts, right? I need to respond to what is happening to the business today, but I need to devote enough time and attention to reimagine my business for the future. You know, we ran a survey of CEOs earlier in the year, and one of the most jarring statistics that came out of that is, I think almost 40% of chief executives said, if my business continues along the exact same path that it is right now, I don't think the business will be viable in 10 years' time.
Very telling.
That's a pretty bold statement to make. And I think it throws down the gauntlet for a lot of business leaders to say, you're fighting quarter to quarter, and that's important because there are a set of things like inflation that are going to call for an immediate response. But are you devoting enough time and attention to reimagine the business over the next 10 years? And do you have the people and the talent and the skills in order to be able to do that? And just to close out on the employee side, I think that challenge cascades down. And you
Absolutely,
say, well,
because then you have to respond to this self-awareness, which is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
But how do you execute?
How do you execute? How do you reskill yourself to make yourself relevant to the challenges that need to be fought over the next 5-10 years? So I think, maybe you'll feel a lot more pressure on roles that sort of look into one silo and focus on what you're doing, but do it very well. But to say, how does that intersect with other parts of the business, and how can I contribute to a reinvention over the next 10 years? We see that topic of business model reinvention as the central theme that we're going to be talking about over the next 5-10 years.
Absolutely. So over the next 5-10 years, but of course beginning with this first 12 to 18 months, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you're going to have to see movement on multiple fronts. Right? But for some of the things, Tehmina, that need to be addressed in a decade's time, the seeds need to be sown today.
That's right.
And you need to get moving on certain things. It's not a flip the switch.
Absolutely. So Rakesh, thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
I think this has been a fascinating in-depth dive into your latest PwC's recently published report, which is, of course, Voice of the Consumer Survey 2024. That's all we have time for today. I'm Tehmina Kaoosji, signing off for Niaga Spotlight. We'll see you again next week. Here's to a productive week ahead.
Thank you very much.
Right. So we're just in the back.